Tania Velasquez, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and College Director for Career Services at Suffolk County Community College. By Design, The History of Oppression on Long Island is a documentary series focusing on various forms of oppression, bias, and injustice which exists on Long Island. In a previous episode, my colleague, Jill Santiago, spoke with administrators from the Viscardi Center, where they educate and empower people with disabilities. As a follow-up to that episode, today we will be exploring the importance of advocacy for individuals with disabilities. Specifically, we will be speaking about advocating for accommodations and the impact it may have on individuals within higher education and their success rates. I am sitting here today with Suffolk County Community College alumnus Tommy Ryan and my colleague Jennifer Forni, College Director for the Office of Disability Services. Thank you both for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. So Tommy, you will have the first question. So can you just share with us your story as we open up the interview?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I was born 25 years ago with a condition called Peters anomaly. And for those of us who don't know what that is, that's basically when you're born, your eyes are supposed to develop in layers, and mine didn't do that. It morphed all together, caused me to go blind in both eyes pretty much instantly. And it turned out that I was going to need a couple of surgeries to see if I can kind of restore some of the vision in those eyes. But basically, my parents receiving that news, it might as well have been a death sentence to them. They were really devastated. What are we going to do? And they pretty much said it's going to be a long road for him going to school and having to do all these things. But we can do these procedures and hope that the vision will restore itself. And fortunately, with multiple procedures throughout my childhood, I was able to regain some vision in my right eye and then light sensitivity in my left. And I've had other complications throughout my childhood with glaucoma, cataracts. When I was 18, I had my first cornea transplant. And just through a lot of the different challenges I faced throughout my childhood into college, it really just led me to be an advocate for other people with disabilities. So that's why I find myself here.
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
In the prior interview we had with the Viscardi Center, Chris Rosa spoke about the importance of advocacy and inclusion being the core value of the center, which is what I really want this interview to be about. So Tommy, if you could just talk about how has your disability impacted you in school? Specifically in high school and then moving on to college.
Yeah, sure. I mean, high school and college are very different from each other. When you go into high school, you have a lot of support from your teachers or vision teacher, other therapists that might be working with you, and a lot of those people are making choices and they're advocating for you. And then going into college, it's a little bit different. You have to do it yourself. So throughout high school, I had an aide that followed me from class to class. She would take notes, and oftentimes she would even advocate for me if the teacher was showing a movie or something. And she would kind of say that if you're showing that, Tommy's got to sit up in the front row. By the time I got to 11th, 12th grade, I really didn't want somebody speaking for me anymore. And I was just kind of I spoke with my vision teacher, who was really pushing me to get rid of the aide earlier on. I finally realized later on, I'm like, you know what, you're right. I can totally speak up for myself. And I was a little just scared to do it originally, but I think the more I got the practice doing it in senior year, I became better at it. And of course, I didn't really want somebody following me from class to class anymore. So, but then when I got into college, I went away from my first semester at the University of Hartford before I started here at Suffolk to study in the audio engineering program there. And while I was there, midway through my semester, I woke up and I realized that my vision, it was just almost like looking through a steamed over shower glass. It was just the world as I knew it was almost like it was snowing outside. And I'm just thinking, okay, maybe it's just the weather here, maybe I'm just not used to it, whatever, I'm just having a foggy day. But as the semester went on, it just got progressively worse, and of course it hindered my academics and how I was going to be able to, succeed in the courses that I was doing. They were very visually entailed, having to get underneath soundboards and do the electrical stuff. I was like, I don't really feel comfortable doing that with my current condition right now. Sorry, I'm went squirreled.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
You know, if I could bring you back to high school.
Sure.
When you're saying that there was a vision teacher, what did you say, a vision teacher?
Yes, so a teacher of the visually impaired.
Oh, okay, so the vision teacher was
Yes.
empowering you to advocate for yourself?
Definitely, absolutely.
Okay. And then from there?
From there, I gained more steam with my self-advocacy. I gained more confidence, and by the time I graduated, I was pretty much in every class by myself. Maybe I had like an assistant if I felt the class was very visual, like a science lab or something. Mm-hmm. They would sit in the back of the room just in case I needed some assistance doing the lab. But other than that, you know, I could walk the halls independently finally, which is very liberating. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as you were getting older, then you were learning how to advocate for yourself?
Yes.
Okay, and then in college. So you were talking about Hartford and you were losing your vision. Did that cause
Yes.
you, did you come home?
Yes, you know what, I did finish the semester, barely passing, but I did come home and it wound up that I was going to be needing my first cornea transplant. So I had that done in spring of 2016. I took some time to recover, and then I started here at Suffolk in the fall.
So what empowered you to come to Suffolk after going through your healthcare, and then you had to have surgery, and then what made you want to continue with your education?
Sure. You know, I just wanted to get my general ed requirements out of the way while I was still recovering. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back to Hartford or not. You know, that whole experience, you can imagine, was very traumatic, and I wake up having nightmares about it. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting down with my parents, and I was like, I don't think I really want to do this. I was like, I'm glad that I did it. It's just, I don't think I can go back there and, you know, God forbid this happened again. At least I'll be closer to home, you know, closer to my doctors in the city. So if I had to go in for another procedure, I can do that. And it wound up that I was going to be needing more procedures after that anyway. Mm-hmm. Little did I know. But while I was here, that's when I got connected with an organization called the ABLE Club, which is a student-led organization that advocated for people with disabilities. And just through my struggle as a student and learning about some of the different obstacles that these students were facing also, it empowered me to be an advocate for them. And the more I got involved with their projects and everything, I just fell in love with that type of work. And I was like, wow, I really love advocating for students and making change. And we saw change happen here. It really, the organization was great. And I asked my club supervisor after like another year or two, I was like, you know, I really want to do this for a living, I think. I really think this would be a great opportunity for me to, you know, do something that really hindered me throughout my life and use it as an advantage to help other people. And she said, well, why don't you look into the human services program here? That'll kind of get you your foundation, and you can decide which helping profession you want to go into. So which I did that. I graduated my associates here in 2020. And then I went on to SUNY Empire to finish up my bachelor's in human services right after that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I just graduated this past spring.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So when you speak about Hartford, in a previous interview that we had, you talked about there was the experience that you had there, mm-hmm. You were forced to accept your disability, and that was, as you called it, your aha moment.
Yes.
That you hadn't accepted it until then. You were almost forced to. So can you talk a little bit about your experience of acceptance?
I mean, prior to that, you know, I'll admit, I mean, I had a little bit of a different outlook on my disability. I tried to hide it as best I could, even though I wore, you know, very thick glasses at the time. I worked with my cane and everything. But I tried to hide it just to prove that I could be like everybody else. And I realized that I was, later on when I had that aha moment, that I wasn't living authentically. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of forced at this point to start asking people for more help. And even though it really pushed me out of my comfort zone, I had to sit myself down. I was like, you know, you're going to keep this up, or are you going to just, you know, be transparent about it? Yes, you have this disability, but, you know, you're moving forward. And it was just...
Well, that's exactly what you did. You moved
exactly.
forward.
I moved forward.
So you go to Suffolk and you meet Jen Forni.
Yes.
In her office.
Yes.
So my next question is for Jen. So Jen, as Tommy is speaking about his disability and his acceptance while he's going to college, can you speak about what is your experience in regard to working with college students and their acceptance of their disabilities?
Yeah. I think, when students come to Suffolk, we have a variety of students. Some who have experienced going to other colleges, some who are coming here right from high school, and returning adults. So they all kind of have varying levels of acceptance of their disability. But I do think the students who have a little bit more acceptance, or who have had some other experiences, are the ones who do better. We really do see the students that come and register with our office early are the ones who are then getting their accommodations early and set up, rather than the students who are thinking, oh, let me come to college, I'm not going to need my accommodations anymore. Then they come to school, they take midterms, and they don't do well. And then they come and say, okay, I really could have used that extended time, or I really could have used the ability to get a copy of notes, or whatever it may be. So then they register with us, and hopefully we can turn the semester around or turn the year around depending on when they register. But it does seem, if they're able to accept that they may need to register with our office to get accommodations early, they're better prepared to be in the classroom. And really to sort of understand that our office is there to just help level the playing field. It's not to try to give anybody an advantage. It's just to make sure they have access to what they need in order to be a college student and get the same education as all of their peers.
That they have a right to.
They have a right to, exactly.
And that's what you were speaking, Tommy, about the difference with high school and then in college, and just as the assistant dean, that's part of what we're constantly telling our students. There's a huge difference between, you may have been able to deal with no accommodations in high school, but in college it's your right, and legally we have to give it to you. So Tommy, can you speak a little bit about when you were going through that process in Hartford, and when we were speaking, you're saying it was traumatic to go through it. What was your source of strength to get through it?
I think for me, having a sense of humor and oh my goodness, I tripped over that step. Could you imagine that one? Just laughing at it instead of being like, oh my God, I just walked into that. I'm so embarrassed right now, I think, and it also helped me, but I think it also helped break the ice of other people around me, because I think it also kind of saw that, I didn't take it all that seriously, I guess you could say, and that, I'm going to walk into things. It's just another day in the life. It happens. I think, too, also just advocating for other students there who I grew relationship with that also had other disabilities themselves, and there was no organization there like we had at Suffolk. So we kind of formed our own little fellowship group, and we would just kind of talk about things, and then some of the things that we would discuss, I would bring it to the dean of students or the coordinator of disability services there and say, these things need changing, and we need to work on it. And if had I stayed another semester, they were considering keeping me on as a chairperson for a potential student organization, but obviously it never worked out. But I was here at Suffolk, and I was glad to do it here.
So as you were advocating, and even when you continued advocating for Suffolk, Suffolk students, what barriers came to light as you started realizing, advocating for yourself, but also assisting students with them getting their accommodations? What barriers came up?
I think there's a whole array of barriers, and I'll start with the physical barriers of, when you get on a college campus, it's one of the first things that stands out to me. How physically accessible is this? How well lit is the campus? How well maintained is it? How well the yellow lines painted on the staircase? Yes, those yellow lines are used by me, yes. And are they faded? Do you keep up on your maintenance and stuff? So that's something that really sticks out to me, because if I'm taking night courses and stuff like that, that's a big deal. And when you don't keep up on that, you're basically saying that I don't belong here. I think also too, it comes with more attitudinal barriers. I'm not sure if that's a word. From both students and faculty. I reflect back on an experience I had here earlier on at Suffolk, that I had a professor hand me a piece of paper that he was handing out to the rest of the class, and basically said, well, I guess you'll figure out how to read this, right? Now, granted, I had a lot of technology and stuff, and that helped me to do that stuff, and I could, I'm self-sufficient in that I could scan it on my phone and do that. Problem is, I shouldn't have to do that, because I'm doing both your job and my job at the same time, and I should be able to walk into a class and have everything accessible to me at the, touch of a button, really, for me, because that's where I access my stuff is on my computer, or have it in an accessible format that I can actually read it and not have to put all this guesswork in, and then even reach out to disability services, and then sometimes that could take a little while to get the format, and then you're delaying the assignment by a couple of days and everybody's like moved on to the next thing, you're still working on your part of the assignment. So.
And I think it's important what you just said. When an institution supplies all the accommodations, you're telling the student, you belong here. And that's
Definitely.
been a slogan of Suffolk, of you belong here. And it's something as simple as you're saying, just paint the lines for me to be able to see
I'm like,
it.
give me the yellow jar, I'll paint the lines. Like.
Well, we don't want you painting the lines. So there has been legislation that has provided equal access for education. It combats the segregation and isolation in an educational setting for our students. So, Tommy, continue with your questioning. What impact has you receiving all your accommodations had on your educational, your career, and your career aspirations?
I honestly, if I didn't have things put in place from the ADA and these accommodations, I don't know how it would be possible for me to continue studying. That's just the bottom line. You know, I use a lot of accommodations. I had extended time for tests. I had preferential seating. A lot of things that, you know, you look back into the disability rights movement, a lot of these people were fighting for. And, you know, without their work and their dedication to this, you know, I really don't know where I would be right now. It's amazing.
Jen, can you discuss through your lens the impact it's made on students when they receive all their accommodations?
Absolutely. I mean, I think just to follow up with what Tommy just said, you know, disability rights are human rights. They should be things that are available to everybody. And yes, there were disability legislation that came about and people were able to have equal access, but it doesn't mean sort of that fight is over and there's still more to do.
Absolutely.
Like Tommy said, yes, he was here only a few years ago when someone handed him a piece of paper that wasn't accessible. And so, yes, he has the right to be here and have those accommodations, but yet there's still education to be done and, you know, work to be done to that point. But I think to show sort of in general, when students do have access to those accommodations or access to our office, we can at least help continue on with that education piece and helping make sure there's access available. And I think when students, again, have those accommodations available to them, like the extended time, they're able to show their full knowledge of what they know and what they've studied for. If you gave Tommy and I the same exam on something and one of us needed extended time, or you gave it to Tommy in size 10 print font and he didn't have access to it, how would you be able to know as a faculty member that he's studying and he knows all the work? Or maybe I need extended time and if you cut my time short, I'm not able to show that, but we both studied and we both learned, so we should have the right to do that. And I think sometimes faculty forget that that's the point of accommodations, is just to level that playing field so that we can give the faculty members the information that we've learned, we've studied, we've done the work. Let's, you know, grade me just like you would everybody else. Those accommodations aren't there so that students can cheat or so that they have more time to write more, do more in-depth essays. It's really to just show, hey, I know the material too.
Thank you.
Definitely.
And Tommy, I don't think you have said what your career aspirations are. You did say you got your bachelor's from Empire.
Yes.
What are you doing now?
So I've actually been inspired by the work that Jen has done, and I'm actually considering going into the field of vocational rehab counseling to continue helping college students.
Good for you. Okay, so this question is for both of you. Do you feel there is still a stigma with having a disability? And how can we combat that stigma with our professors and our students? Who wants to take it first?
I'll take this one. I think there is definitely a stigma. I think people just, you know, they hear the word disability or they feel they have a disability themselves and they just say that, oh, that's my weakness or that's, you know, a flaw of mine. And it's not, you know, yes, you have this, but sometimes the most disabling factors of a disability are the environmental factors. And we can change those. And you have the support available to you. So make sure you rely on your support to help you with that. But yeah, I think also speaking with your students, just I think being human, allowing yourself to, you know, trip over things like I do sometimes, or just, again, having a sense of humor and showing people that you're human too, and you do belong here. You might do things a little bit differently, you might communicate a little bit differently, but that doesn't make you not human, and you do belong.
Absolutely. I think the stigma is changing, but I think so much of the stigma is the environment. Like you said, if things were universally designed, if everybody had access, maybe we wouldn't need to have an Office of Disability Services. You know, I sort of joke, one day maybe I won't have a job. And I mean that, and I hope that one day I don't. I hope that we do get to
Sure.
a point where everything is universally designed.
Sadly, I think we're getting to a point that we need more.
Yes.
More
Yeah,
gens.
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
And that's what, if we're all working together and providing those accommodations and changing our attitudes about it, maybe the stigma will decrease. Maybe it won't ever go away. But I think the more you get to know people on the human level, it's not something that disability isn't a bad word. That's okay to say that word, and it just means different. And I think the other piece people sometimes forget is you can become a person with a disability at any point in your life.
Very
Tommy
true.
was someone who, yes, had the visual disability when you were born, but there's people who have disabilities when they get to college. We see that a lot with mental health, that the most common time for someone to be diagnosed with a mental health related disability is 18 to 21.
Yep.
And here we are in college
years.
during that time. And so these are students who have never experienced the need for accommodations in the past. So that can happen. And so if we all work together to change our attitudes and have more acceptance, that maybe we won't need to worry so much about the advocating piece of it, because people will be more understanding, and that will lower that stigma.
Well, as both advocates yourself, and I thank you both for your
Of
work,
course. No, thanks for having us.
what do you think is the responsibility for our next generation of advocates? And we understand it's a humbling responsibility, but what is your advice for the next generation?
I think, like we said, a lot of progress has been made, but there's still a long way to go. And just keep being persistent, keep advocating for yourself, keep advocating for your fellow classmates. Because what you might be doing today might be going a long way for another student, who knows, 3-5 years from now, who really could benefit from what you're doing. And it doesn't just have to be in school, just be in your community. You look at these people who in the disability rights movement. I mean, we're still in the disability rights movement as far as I'm concerned. It's far from over, so keep going, keep being persistent.
Thank you.
And I think to continue with that, the idea that it shouldn't be just the person with the disability fighting and advocating alone.
Definitely.
We're allies. You don't have to be, just like in
Nope.
any other movement, when you think about the ally, it doesn't have to just be the person who's experiencing, because again, you could be part of that community tomorrow. So
That's
to
right.
support your peers. And when, you were part of the ABLE Club doing the student panel, other students came and heard that. And then you had more than just, I think it was 4 or 5 of you on that panel, you had more students fighting for change and for repainting of the yellow lines and doing other work.
Yes.
It's the power of numbers sometimes, so to realize let's support each other and let's listen to the person who's having the experience and their idea behind that, and say, okay, that's what you're experiencing. I may not need the yellow lines, maybe I do, but yes, I'm happy to support you. Let's move that forward. I mean, I think on a bigger picture, Dr. Chris Rosa spoke about some advocacy work on the state level, and he has spent, and we have spent, over 10 years advocating for some funding for students with disabilities in higher ed. And so just last year, in the 2021-22 year, the state finally put a line item in the budget. And it's the first time in years that there's actually funding now out there for state higher ed disability. And it's thanks to the advocacy work of Dr. Chris Rosa, of my colleagues in disability services, going to Albany, students with disabilities going to Albany, talking to legislators and saying, we need funding, we need support, because we want to do more than just provide accommodations. We want to provide additional supports. So we were able to get some of that funds last year, and we're able to buy now, I don't know if you know this, but some new CCTVs for each campus, so that there will be some at the library, some in disability services, so that you don't have to bring all of your own equipment to school. We're hoping to create a lounge for students with disabilities where they can have a place to relax and be a more quiet sort of sensory room where they can kind of hang out and not be in the loud cafeteria or in the library where they may need some space. We're connecting with mental health and wellness to do some work around art therapy. So by having funding, we can actually do more, and it's so important to continue to do that fight, to hear from all the way here at the Suffolk level, your local level, all the way up to the state of Albany, to keep fighting, keep making change, so that people can hear us that yes, we still do need to, like Tommy said, the civil rights, the disability rights movement isn't over. We're still fighting, it's still changing, and let's keep moving forward on what else we can do.
And I think it's important, one line that you have said a couple of times throughout this interview is anybody could have a disability
Yeah.
tomorrow. So it's important to remember that and advocate. So I just want to thank you both for sitting down with me. This has been an enlightening conversation.
so much.
And I thank you for your willingness to sit and take on this big responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.